Yes, welcome you all. We are back with the next session of the general track on automating your daily tasks where your life would be made easy with Python. So let me introduce Mr. Manas Najmuddeen, who is a tech geek and Python enthusiast who is passionate about solving everyday problems using the latest technologies. He is a member of the British Computer Society and is working as the head of system development at a fintech startup. Prior to that, he was building and implementing software for the operations and management of smart cities and smart buildings as well. So let me welcome Mr. Manas to make your life easy with a bit of Python. The stage is yours, sir.
Hey, thank you about the introduction, Sanduni. And I can see a lot of participants in the chat box. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Let me quickly share the screen. Okay, there you go. So, welcome everyone to another session at PyCon Sri Lanka here. And I would like to talk about how you can automate your daily tasks using Python. So, yeah, this is me. I'm Manas Najmuddeen, Head of Systems Development at Truecaller, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter through the links I have shared in the screen. All right. So let's get into that. So what are we going to talk about today? So let's look at why we need automation and a couple of examples like how to read write files through Python and how to get data from APIs and a little bit of web scraping using Python and how you can send a simple email uh, just within Python. So with that, let's get into the session. Yeah. So why do we need automation? Yeah. So on a daily basis, it can be your work or your daily life. You are doing a lot of repetitive tasks. It can be it, filling out Excel sheets, doing reports, then uploading it somewhere, or you may have to download some report, do some changes, then send out an email. So those are like uh, every day you might have to repeat it, or like every week in certain frequency. And what other tasks that you can automate is maybe there may be some long running tasks, but it might be giving little value to you. So those kind of tasks, if you identify in your daily life, let's go through some examples a little later. You can automate them. So what are the benefits? Uh, One, it will be much accurate if you let the system or computer do the job. So what you will do is you will identify the steps that you will do manually if you are doing a task, and then write it in the script so that the script will take care of it. So we are not prone to that human error anymore. As long as you test the code first and you implement it, you can run it as long as you want with much accuracy. And the other main benefit is it saves a lot of time. Yeah, I mean, who likes to start or spend their day doing reports? I mean, what can be automated? Maybe you want to copy something, paste it somewhere else, or there might be a column in the Excel sheet that you need to break it into multiple columns. So these tasks can take a lot of time, but what you can do is let the automation take care of it and spend your valuable time elsewhere on maybe creative tasks. So let's say, for example, okay, you are looking for a job. So you are interested in Python jobs. So what you do, you maybe have like 3, 4, 5 job boards where you look at, and every day you will log into the job board and see if there are any new Python related jobs posted there. So with automation, what you can do, an automation script can run every day and it will go through the job boards, scan it for you, and get the relevant jobs that you are interested in. And it can send you an email summary with the links where you can go and apply. So this also applies to products that you want to purchase on an e-commerce site. So if you are looking for something, some product, then you can make sure, I mean, you can let the bot or the automation script do the work for you in order to, I mean, it will find and tell you whenever something is available. Or it can be reading news. You may be interested in tech news, but you have to go through each and every news site. So the same thing can happen using relevant keywords. The script can give you a summary of the news items that you can look at. All right, now let's go and see some examples. First, let's look at reading from and writing to files. So why this is important? So if a automation script is running, if you want to persist something like save it to be seen later, of course, this is very handy where you can write it to a file in the system and then you can email it or you can view it later or whatever you can do. So let's look at the Python. Let's get into Python right away. So here you can see it's very simple. If you want to read from a file, you just need to know the location of the file. So here we are just giving the name of the file, meaning the file lives in the same directory where the script is living at the moment. So you just say with and open. Open is a function, special function with Python standard function. If you pass a file name to it, it will open the file object for you, load it into a variable as f. Then it's just a matter of printing f.read. I'll go through the syntax. So it's with, and then you give the expression as variable, and then you write the with block, whatever you want to do with the variable and the files. So the expression, what can you put here as the expression? So the speciality about the with the clauses are that you can use any expression here. For example, I mean, if you're using opening a file, I mean, you have to close the file. So you don't have to manually close it here because as long as soon as the Python code goes out of the scope of the with, it will automatically close the file for you. So let's look at, yeah. So the file object here, it implements these magic methods, enter and exit methods. So what happens is, whenever the code blocks goes into the with block, it will first run the whatever code is in the enter, and when it goes out, it will run the code that is in the exit method. I'll show you an example. So here we have a database connection class. As you can see, we have implemented the enter method and the exit method. So when we enter the method, so if we use it with the with clause, what happens is as soon as the with block is executed, as you can see, the database connection will be returned. So that goes as the variable that can be used to query the database. And then we have the exit function, which you can see if we use it to close the database connection, so that the user who is using it doesn't have to manually close it if they're using it with clause. Okay, so let's now go and see how to the actual reading a file. Let's say we have a file.txt and just says the standard text, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, broken into 4 different sentences, 4 different lines. So let's see when we run the code, what happens. So if we run the code, as you can see, when we print f.read, you can see the whatever the text that is in the file is completely read to the memory, and it is uh, pasted here. It is actually printed here. You can see the whole text is here. So there are, I mean, different methods, different strategies we can use here. Let me show. So here, I mean, if you want to read each of the lines separately, so actually, I mean, it is reading all the lines at once. But what happens is, if you use f.read lines, what happens is each of the line is loaded into a list. So you can iterate over the list and do whatever you want to do. Next, let's see how to write to a file. I mean, which is, I mean, we saw as part of the example in automation. So it's very similar. As you can see, it's with open, and then we have the file name here. Then we pass comma W. So the W here, says, it sets the mood as writing mood, and everything else is same as F. Then instead of read, you say f.write, and you give the text whatever you want to give here. So we create a new file here, file2.txt. So that is the other thing. Now, when you use this, if file2 already exists, it will be replaced. And if it is not there, Python will create a new file for you. So let's see if we run what we can expect. Yep. As we can see, file2 text.txt will be created with welcome to PyCon Sri Lanka 2022 as the text. So let me show you something else. Now, let's say you want to append to an existing file. I mean, we saw if we use the W mode, then it will overwrite the existing file. So let's say we want to append at the end of a file. There you go. It is the same code here, with the exception of, for the mood we use A, which stands for append. So if we use this, you can see a new line will be added to the same file. We are not creating a new file, or we are not overwriting the existing file. All right. So let's now. So that was reading and writing from files. So pretty straightforward. I mean, if you know, I can say, I mean, if you can write a hello world in Python, it's very easy. With the 2 lines of code, you can read from a file, and also you can write to a file. This will become very handy whenever you are doing automations. Now let's look at reading from how do we read data from an API. So for this, we have to use, it's not have to, we can use an external library, which is requests. So it's almost like the standard library, because most of the people use this for making HTTP calls and API calls. So in order to use this, you have to just install with the pip command, pip install requests. Then you are good to go to use this. Okay, so let's go over some code very quickly this time. You first import the requests library. Then let's look at the URL here. I will come to the other variables shortly. So I'm using an open API to get the weather. So the URL is loaded into a variable, and we are using F notation, the F strings here, where you can embed the variables within the string itself, as you can see. So I have given the coordinates for the city of Colombo, and you need to generate an API key from OpenWeatherMap, and you can replace it here. And you pass the latitude, the longitude, and the API key. Then we will see what are the results we are going to get. And one more thing to mention, I'm using units as metric. So these are the query string parameters that you can pass to the API: the latitude, the longitude, the units, and the API key, which goes as app ID. So if you don't use the metrics unit, it will by default give you the units in Kelvin. So this is how you use it. It's very simple. You say you request and invoke the get method. So get is just like HTTP get. I mean, if you want to post, you would be using request.post. So we are looking at get today. So it get, just say the what is the URL, and the response will be given to you immediately. So let's see what happens when we run this. Okay. So I'm printing here the response. Uh, Response comes as JSON. So if you say response.json, Python will take the response and convert it to JSON for you. I mean, it will dump it to a dictionary for you. You can also use response.text if it is a text-based results. I mean, some other results is coming. Uh, so let's look at the results that has come to us. There are various details here. Our whatever the coordinate we passed is there, and also it has identified the name of the city as Colombo, and country you can see it shows LK standing for Sri Lanka. And this is the main part that we are interested in. The main, the key main, it shows the real-time data, the temperature, read that. So this is the main part that we are going to read in this from this API, and what is the code for that. So it's very simple. So let's go to this line, first line. So it says response.json. We are assigning it to the variable. I'm from the variable. It's our classic dictionary. We call the main key, and then it's another dictionary here. The value is another dictionary, and we are reading the temp key, which is 25.99. It's printed here for us. Okay, so this is a very, I mean, straightforward and easy thing to do with APIs. So let's look at, let's talk about what some other things you can do. So for example, let's say you are into stock trading, and at any given day you want to know what is the stock prices are like. You can use an app for that, or if you want to automate that, and if you want to like customize your experience, what you can do, you can consume their APIs, and you can get the data, and what you are going to do with the data is up to you. It's, I mean, like the possibilities are limitless. You can send it as an email, you can post it somewhere, you can write it to a file, whichever, I mean, suits your workflow. Or it might be getting crypto prices if you're into cryptocurrency. Or you can set up sensors with a Raspberry Pi and access data through the APIs. For this, you can use a simple Python Flask web framework or Django web framework that implements APIs. And what you can do, I mean, you can do home automation like temperature control or controlling the lights, or other IoT applications like let's say you have a home garden and you want to monitor the how much water is giving, or you want to control the water. Everything can be done like through API calls. So we are using get. If you want to pass some data, you have to use the post method, of course. All right. Now so let's move on to something interesting. So we will now see an example of web scraping with a library called Beautiful Soap. So what is web scraping? If you are wondering, uh, I'll show you an example. Now I have taken a screenshot of this website, a statistic website, which shows the highest wicket takers in test cricket. As you can see, this is a screenshot from a website, and it has the players from 1 to 7. I think probably this is giving you, yeah, players taking at least 500 wickets. We have 7 players here. So the idea is to, through Python, read this data and get it into the program. So like we discussed, after you getting into the program, you can do whatever with that. So let's see, as an example, how you can do this. So I just want to give a disclaimer here. If you are doing web scraping, please do it ethically. Don't stress the website, so don't stress any servers. For a, I mean, there are some ethics. I can give you the link if you want. Just go through that and make sure that you follow the ethics and you don't like put the webmasters in trouble. All right. So this is, I think you are very familiar with this code now. We are importing the requests library and we are passing the URL of the website, which is this. And then we get the data as requests.get and pass the URL. So now the web page is loaded into the uh, variable. Let's move on. So before moving on, let's take a look at the structure of the HTML table. So if you, in the web browser, if you go to inspect element, you can see I have pinpointed where exactly the table is. So this is the table that holds all the players details that we are interested in scraping. So as you can see, this table has a class saying table lined. So we need to keep a note of that because it's needed later to access this table. And I think probably these are the header rows, and then we have a row for each of the players statistic. Okay, let's move ahead. Yeah, there you go. This is the correct table. As you can see, I have opened the third line, which shows the first player in the list and their statistics in the same row. Okay, now let's move on. Now we need to use the beautiful soup library. So the beautiful soup is used particularly to scrape websites and get data from the websites. So we need to install it like this: pip install beautiful soup 4, the latest version, and then this is how you use it. From bs4 import beautiful soup, you have to add it in your code. Now let's see an example how it is done. So to the beautiful soup class, you need to pass whatever the data we got from the API, so the website. So we added that to the data variable. We are getting it as a text where it will give us the HTML of the website, and we are passing it into the beautiful soup. And then within that soup, we are finding the table with the class. If you can, I think you can remember we made a note of table lined class. So we are using that table line class to find the table within the HTML. And again, we are finding all the rows within the table, and it comes as a list to the rows variable. Okay, now let's, this is how exactly you do it. First, we have a uh, empty list where we will append our data. Then we enumerate over the rows. So as you know, when we enumerate over a list or any iterable, what happens is you can enumerate with the index and the element. You don't have to like do, I mean, two things separately. So we just ignore if the lines are 0 or 1, meaning the first two lines which has the headers, and then we find all the columns from specific row, and then we take the text and strip it and make sure that there are no white spaces, and then we are appending it to the players list. uh, and here we have another list comprehension which takes care of excluding the empty values. I mean, if there are any empty. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so we have the data in the players variable. So let's do an iteration. Let's go each player and print player, the sixth element, and the element at index 6 and element at index 1 in each player. So you will see why. So as you can see, the seventh column was the wickets column, and the second column was the name of the player. So we are printing the number of wickets and the player who has taken those wickets. Okay. So this is a very, I mean, again, a basic example of scraping a website. So again, the possibilities are limitless. I mean, there is no limit to what you can do with this. I just went for a very basic website to show you how you can scrape the data from the website, and there are some limitations. For example, with request and beautiful soap, you can't scrape from sites where JavaScript is loading the data. So you probably might have to use something like Selenium WebDriver, which which simulates a web browser for you, and do the scraping through that. Okay, now let's move. We have a couple of minutes. Let's quickly go through this. So how do you send an email from Python? So again, this is like a you start, gather data, then process the data, and then do something with it as an output. So email is an output where you can send it to someone else or to yourself in an email uh, at your convenience, to be checked at your convenience. All right. So we'll quickly glance through the code here. You need to import these two libraries to get the password, and the smtblib is the library that is responsible for connecting to a email server. You need to provide the host. So if it is Gmail, this is going to be your host, and the port number for it. Username is going to be your complete email, and password, as you can see, we are not hard coding it here. We are getting it prompted from the user. So user will have to enter it here. So we are using getPass so that the it will not be echoed, like it will not be printed on the console. So it will be hidden from the console, but it will take in the password. And you need to make sure if you're using Gmail, it should be like, don't use your regular password. You create an application specific password from the Gmail security settings and use it here. Otherwise, the Gmail will not let you do this. Then you create the server, smtplib.smtp._ssl. You pass the host and the port, and the username and password has to come. We will see where we are using it. After creating the server, you log into the server.login, you pass the username and the password, and you will get a result as accepted. After that, you can send email, you can read email, you can do whatever you want. As you can see an example here, we have server.send email. We say from whom it should go and to whom it's going, and the text. So it just says an email from Python. I mean, you can format it like HTML, you can have attachments here. I mean, you can play around with this. Say how to send an email in just 2 minutes time. Okay, so we use, you can see here, Scrapy is a popular tool to scrape websites. And apart from Beautiful Soup, this is very advanced. And we have the Selenium WebDriver, OpenPyXL, where you can use it to uh, manipulate Excel files. You can read Excel files, change data, write it back, and Mailgun to send emails, you don't have to have an email server. You can create an account at Mailgun, and they will give you an API access. And then we have Trilua here to send SMSs. I mean, let's say, for example, we talked about the example of getting the weather. Maybe in the morning when you're getting ready to go to office or work or to your school, you want to check what is the weather like to decide you're going to take the car or you're going to take the metro, you're going to take the bus, how are you going to go? So Trader can be used to send an SMS every morning with the weather and also the weather forecast for the day. So, I mean, if you get into the automation, learn a little bit Python, and if you go into the automation, I mean, you can do many things. Like it can be your work things, or it can be your personal things. You can, I mean, do a lot of automation with this. All right. So that concludes the presentation today. Again, my contact details are here. My LinkedIn and the Twitter URL are here. I mean, if you are interested, uh, you can connect with me. And if you have any questions, we can take it now, I guess.
Yes, thank you. So that was really an interesting, and you can raise your questions to clarify doubts in the Q&A chat, and also you can raise your hand and to unmute yourself and clarify your doubts as well. Yeah, we already have a few questions on the chat, so let me direct them to Mr. Manas.
Yeah.
Yes. What are the best frameworks for automation and why? For example, a well-known framework is Selenium, which supports functional and regression testing, as well as a few different scripting languages like Java and PHP. Any other frameworks?
Uh, okay. I think Selenium is a good framework that you can start your automation journey. For example, if the site you are trying to access is having a captcha or some kind of mechanism to block you, I mean, you can even design them in such a way that the user can intervene. I mean, if there is a button to be clicked or something that can't be done by the framework. So I think Selenium is a very good place you can start. Like you said, it's a well-known framework. And what are the best frameworks? Of course, I mean that's going to be subjective. So I'm pretty sure. I mean, you can uh, do enough research on the internet and get like any if there are any other frameworks for languages like Java and PHP. Because I mean, frankly, I am not very aware of what are the different tools you have with using with Java and PHP. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir. And the next one, what are the steps involved in the automation process?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so the steps involved, what you have to do first is like you need to write down each and every steps, like uh, what you will do if you are doing it manually. You need to record it step by step, and if you if there is a like a larger step, then you may have to look into break it into even smaller steps, and then what you have to do is you have to look at how you can automate each and every step, automate, and it has to flow through. Like you start with somewhere, and if there's an output, it has to go into the next step, and so on. I mean, usually, like we saw, it will be like a simple or single Python file, or it can be a multiple Python files and frameworks running it together to help you with the automation process.
Yes, thank you. And we have another one. What are the most important libraries used for automation?
Uh, okay. Uh, so I have used these libraries that we discussed today. It can be There is one other automation library which is PyAuto GUI. So instead of using a Selenium WebDriver, which will simulate a web browser for you, what you can do instead is you open your browser or let the PyAuto GUI the script to open the your browser in your desktop and then do whatever the tasks. So that is something you can look at. And also Scrapy can be used, I mean, extensively. It's a very powerful tool, but if you're using, I mean, make sure that you don't violate the servers and be ethical about the, how you're doing it.
Yes. For the next question we have, is PyTest better for automation than Selenium?
Uh, that depends. I mean, I don't think we can give like a yes or no answer for that, because like everything, when you are using a, when you are selecting a product, when you are selecting a tool, you have to look at what is the tool that best suit your current circumstance. For example, PyTest will be better to do some kind of automation, and Selenium will be used to do other maybe something else. So what I would say is it's difficult to say what is better. So you have to, I mean, get a basic understanding of what each library is good for and what it is not good for, and then assess your circumstances, what where you are, and then from there you can select whatever the library that is suitable for you.
Yes, thank you. And we have, uh, is web scraping the same as web crawling?
Uh, it is not. So web crawling is mostly done by the uh, search engines to crawl through the internet and i- build indexes to help with the uh, search engines performance. So but web scraping on the other hand, it helps you as a user, individual user, to get data from a specific website. uh, it can be e-commerce site, it can be any other information site, to get the data you need to use it as per your requirement.
Yes, we have another question. Is there any way to ensure the efficiency and accuracy for a long time period when automating our daily tasks?
Okay, I think there are some strategies that you can use. For example, if you are scraping a website, or when you are running a task for a long time, it might start and it might take a lot of time. So, I mean, you have to keep in mind things like not to lose the data halfway through. For example, if the process is running for, let's say, 10-15 minutes, if there is some issue, some network goes down or some other problem, let's say at minute number 5, then whatever that run so far is going to, you're going to lose it. So make sure that you persist the data as and when it comes, and you can use multi-threading for this, so that there'll be one thread for writing it, reading and putting it into a queue, then another thread that goes and writing it, persisting it. So that is something that you have to make sure, and definitely look at multi-threading. It will help you to do it faster. So for example, if you use library like Scrapy, they have inbuilt support for multiple threads to run and scrape for you. Yeah.
Yes, next we have, how do we write some handy day-to-day automation scripts and schedule it to run automatically on Mac or Windows?
Yeah. So what you have to do is you run the, I mean, you write the script, and I couldn't show it today because of the time constraint. What you can do, what you can do is in Mac or in Windows, there's this I think task scheduler in Windows, and Mac you have the cron tab. So what you do, you make the script running at a given time. So through the task scheduling application, whatever is there on your in your computer, and then it will run for you, and it will get the I mean, automatically it will run on the given time, as long as the system is up. So the computer should be on. So another alternative for that, what you can do, you can procure like a uh, VPS, a virtual private server, in Amazon or DigitalOcean somewhere, and then you can run the scripts there. It's going to, I think, cost you like as like $5 per month to procure the server, and then you can have a whole plethora of automation there. So that would be very handy. I think will come to very handy.
Yes, and we have like request more than a threshold.
So you need to make sure. I mean, there are some ways where you can like rotate the IP to make sure that you are not using the same IP, or different techniques how you can overcome this. But at the same time, I want to stress that make sure when you are sending requests, you don't. I mean, if the survey that you are trying to access doesn't allow you, or if they have restrictions, please honor them. So for example, if they say don't send more than 60 requests per second, don't go more than 60 seconds. So go into the trouble of getting blocked. So if you honor those, I mean, definitely they will allow you to scrape or send get data as much as you want, and also be ethical on your scraping techniques.
Yes, we have another one like how to find the APIs provided by the website.
So there will be, I mean, if you go to any website, for example, let's say the Open Weather API that we used, they have like a separate section. If they are providing the API, of course, it will be very easier for you to find it. So whenever there is, I mean, so there is something else I wanted to stress. If a website is providing the API, please use the API. Don't try to scrape the website, because they are already given you publicly accessible APIs. So how you can find is just go to the website, read their documentation, and see how to get the API. And also keep in mind that not all websites give a API to be consumed. So or just Google and see where you can find the API for a specific website.
Yes, we can have another question like
Yeah.
should tasks necessarily be repetitive to automate?
So that's interesting, because uh, let's say if you a task doesn't repeat. So I'm not sure what you are what they are asking about, telling what they mean by repetitive. Like if it is repeating on the same time, or if it is repeating like copy paste. You have to do multiple times. It's a repetitive. Or doing one report and doing it on another day again. It's a repetitive task. So what I think is, if it is not repetitive, if it is a one-time task, uh, of course you can do automate it for the purpose of accuracy. So you can make sure that whatever the data automation you do will be accurate. But if it is a very small, like if you are putting, I can say like this, if you are putting more time into automate it than actually doing it, and if it is a one time thing, I think it's better if you just do it or yourself and without automating it.
Yes, another question like these days is Python best fitted for IoT projects?
Of course. I think Python and IoT projects go hand in hand. They have the Python has so many libraries where you can do IoT projects. So definitely, I mean, if you are interested in looking at IoT projects, I would recommend and encourage you to look at Python and how you can use Python to better work with IoT projects.
Yes, and what's a good tool for automating RDP?
So good tool for automating RDP. So uh, I actually haven't come across this requirement. So if it is like RDP, like remote desktop protocol, yeah, like if you're there are some Python libraries where you can access servers or other computers through the SSH protocol, but I'm not quite sure if it is RDP For RDP, I guess, yeah, you can use the UiPath tool, which heavily supports on the Windows side, where you can do RDP kind of automation. But I haven't done that, so I think I can't comment more than that on that.
Yes, and another question like, are there any risks that we have to face when automating a big task?
Uh, so yeah, according to your circumstance, I think you will have to look at the risk. For example, uh, like we explained earlier, the network can go down. So how are you going to take care of that? Or what else can go wrong? So the maybe it's a network drive mounted, and the drive can get unmounted. Someone in the data center can unplug the network drive, for example. And also I think you should not, one is not to overload the server like I was stressing, and also you should not like overload your machine which is running this automating script, so that you can break it into like threads, like we discussed earlier. So I think those are some of the scripts and how you can mitigate them.
Yes, another question like, what are the industry standard tools for automation in Python?
uh, so I think PyAuto GUI, that is one. And then I can say, so when you say automation, it's like this. You really don't have like a specific tool. For example, if you use the request library, get some data out of a API and write it to uh, you write it to, let's say, a file, that is also automation. So again, you have to define what is the kind of automation you are talking about here. Is it like talking to sensors or controlling some robotic arm? I don't know. So based on that, you will have to, based on your requirement, you have to, I think, look at what are the tools that you are going to use.
Yes, and another question like, how to scrape dynamic websites?
Okay, so that is interesting. So like, I mean, of course, you can't do it with the requests library. I'm so what I understand when you say dynamic website is that uh, real time, that whenever the data changes, and also if you just get the HTML code, I mean, you won't find the data there because JavaScript it might be used to load the data. So you can use the Selenium WebDrive, but of course, the Selenium WebDrive is going to be very slow for this. But even to scrape dynamic websites, you can use Scrapy. That is a very good tool that you can use to even scrape dynamic websites.
Yes, thank you. And how to know whether it is a good idea to automate a particular task or not?
Okay, so uh, that you have to decide. For example, if this is a task that you are uh, running on a daily basis and it consumes more time. Let's say there is a task that every day you have to do for 1 hour, but you're doing it every day. But you can spend 4 or 5 hours and automate this. So if you automate that, then you don't have to spend that 1 hour every day. So you will have to like weigh in the pros and cons of what are the benefits you are going to get and what is the cost for that. When I say cost, it is the time and effort. And I mean, when you are working for a, I mean, company, there's this other cost of the human resource. So you have to factor in all these to make get a come to a decision whether to automate a task or not. But if it is repetitive, I would say 99% you will have to automate it.
Thank you. And what are the common ethical standard for automating?
Okay, I think I can give you a good URL that will talk about the ethical side of this. Uh, Let me. That's not my URL. I got it from a good resource. So I will paste it in the chat so you can read about the ethical side of automation and scripting. That is mostly for web scraping, but if you talk about automation in general, uh, I think you should look at again stretching the servers and respecting the privacy, those kind of, I mean, regular things for general automation.
Yes, I think we can get on to the last question. When it comes to web scraping, have you come across way to overcome bot detection tools such as CAPTCHA?
So that is a very interesting topic. Uh, there are bot detection tools that can or like go past the captcha or reCAPTCHA or whatever the website is using. Uh, there are, I think, open source tools as well as paid tools that you can use for this purpose. But I at the moment, I'm sorry, I'm not in a position to like recommend any tools for this. So you will have to do your own research and come across. But there are tools. There are tools that you can use to overcome bot detection. Too. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Can we have one more question? Or,
Yeah. Sure.
yeah. Uh, what are the major facts we need to consider start automation project?
Yeah. So first of all, you will have to see what is the benefit you are getting out of this. So if the time you are investing into this automation project is not, if you compare the time and the benefit, if you are not getting much benefit out of the project, there is no point doing it. So just, I mean, like we discussed, look at how often it repeats and how much time it takes for you to do. And maybe you don't have to delegate this. I mean, sorry, you don't have to automate this. You can delegate it to someone else. And look at all the benefits of automating the task and look at all the cost, or look at all the what is the cost you are going to, what is the price you are going to pay for it. And I think with that you can consider whether you want to start a automation project or not.
Yes, from that we come to the end of the Q&A with the time being. And yes, like, thank you very much for the interesting questions for the delegates and also for the interesting session, Mr. Manas. It was really interesting to know those insights. Yes, next up, we have arranged a networking space for you from 12:30 to 1 p.m. till the next session for you to get the experience of meeting each other at a physical conference. Here you can start the session where you would be randomly paired to another delegate for a 5-minute conversation to share your contacts and ideas within the time. And you can continue matching with another partner until 1 p.m. to share your knowledge and thoughts and also to gather new Python enthusiasts to your circle. And a small reminder that you can join the booths of Matific and Isaac to have discussions with them and enjoy the interacting sessions by standing a chance to win exclusive gifts at the booths as well. Also, a kind reminder to reserve your delegate pack with the t-shirt to wear with pride as an enthusiastic member of the Python community. That brings us to the end of the session and the next hour we will be for your lunch and hope you join us again at 1 p.m. to know more about taming non-deterministic with dependency injection. Thank you all for joining and see you in the next session.